Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Allie's Book Nook. Today I'm going to discuss with you all 11 books that I got through in September 2025. That's right, 11 books. This was my best reading month of all 2025 and probably my best reading month ever. I don't know how, but I plowed through 11 books, and I also hit my reading goal for the year of 60 books. I had set a goal for 60 books for the year. I hit it, and I'm now on book 65. So anyway, it was a great month. Let's dive in here. Okay, so the first book that I read is The Woman in Suite 11 by Ruth Ware. So this is the sequel to the book The Woman in Cabin 10. And check out these sprayed edges. I think I shared this last month with you guys in my August book haul video. So I hauled it in August and I finished it in September. So yeah. And my dog's here. Sorry guys. She wants to be in the video too. That's Maple. Okay. So, The Woman in Suite 11, and actually it's subtitled on Goodreads as Low Black Walk number 2. That's the main character. So, I read this in hardcover only. Did not audio this one. As I said, this is written by Ruth Ware and published by Scout Press. It's a thriller book. It was published this year, 2025. 397 pages. And this is one of the few books that I have bought brand new from Barnes & Noble for $21 because the Barnes & Noble exclusive is the one with the sprayed edges, and I'm a sucker for that. I had to have it. So I started this on August 30th and I actually finished it on September 7th. So it took me about a week. So this book is basically takes place 10 years after the first story. So now we are present day, 10 years later. Our main character, she now has a family and all that, and she's been out of her professional life for a while, but she has this opportunity. She was a travel journalist, so she has an opportunity to go to this exclusive resort opening in the Swiss Alps and write about this location. And so she goes there and trouble soon follows. We do see, as well as her, we see some characters revisited from the first book. Now my cat's here moving stuff around. Sorry guys. So anyway, this was really a pretty good book. I don't think it was as good as the first book, but I do recommend reading the first book. 100% read the first book, The Woman in Cabin 10, first before you go read The Woman in Suite 11. And really, if it's been a while since you read The Woman in Cabin 10, since it was, yeah, like 10 years ago that it was published, I recommend maybe doing a reread of it because there are a lot of references in here that you might not pick up on otherwise. So what did I say in my notes? I said it was nice to revisit the characters. It wasn't as good as the first book. And when the first book was written, a sequel was not intended. And you read this Barnes & Noble exclusive, there's Milo, has an interview with Ruth Ware, and she basically says, yeah, this is her first sequel book that she's written. And it wasn't intended that way when she wrote the first one, but there was just such a fan calling for it that they decided to go ahead and do that. And so it was kind of drawn out. I did guess most of the ending, but not all of it, but I did still enjoy it. So there is a lot of references to the first book. I'm glad I recently read that one because I have a horrible memory. This is her 11th book that she's written, and I will read more Ruth Ware. I've read, I think this is my 4th book of hers, so overall, I give this a 3.5 star rating. Characters, 3.25. Plot, story, 3.5. Readability, 3.5. And overall, 3.5. And now we have my third pet coming over, Minnie. Sorry, guys. So, yeah. it's worth the read. If you've read the first one, yeah, check this out. And as I film this in 2 days, is it? Yeah, I think Friday, October 10th is when the Netflix movie of Woman in Cabin 10 comes out with Keira Knightley. So I'm really excited to watch that. So yeah, read the books, check out the movie, read the books first, and yeah, this book I don't think is part of the movie story. I think it just covers the first book. Okay, so that was the first book I read in September. And then the next book I read, this seems so long ago. I have such a bad memory. But it is... My dog's laying on it. That's great. It's called What Have We Done by Alex Finley. This is my first Alex Finley book, but I actually read 2 in September. So there's another one here we're going to talk about. I did this, actually, I have the paperback, but the audio, I ended up doing it exclusively on audio because I just went through it so fast on audio that I didn't end up picking up the book, which is rare, but it does happen. This was a thriller that was published in 2023. It's 400 pages if you read the book, or 9 hours on audio. I got this for $2 at Goodwill, or maybe it was $2.50. I never remember how much I charge for paperbacks. I think it's $2, even though I always say $2.50. Anyway, very cheap for the book, and then free through Libby, through my local library. Checked out the audiobook that way. So I started this on 9/2 and I finished it on 9/4. 2 days of audio. It was very fast paced. This was a good book. So basically it's about these 3 adults that lived in a foster home as kids, and now something has happened that has brought them all back together to that place. So it's a stay-at-home mom with a past, a has-been rock star with a habit, and a reality TV producer with a debt. So something happened 25 years ago when they were in this foster home, and they kind of had to make a pact. And now, let's see, what does it say? The group is reunited for a single reason. Someone is trying to kill them. To survive, they have to revisit the events of their childhood and confront their shared past, a past that holds secrets to why someone wants them dead. Yeah, this was great. It was very fast paced. It had multiple point of views and multiple narrators. I think there was, the back cover says 3, but I think there was 4. So that could get slightly confusing with the multiple points of view, especially at the end of the book. There was something I had to go back and re-listen to because it was a little bit like confusing. So this was really action paced, which I'm not usually a huge fan of, a lot of action, but it worked in here. And same with this other book, pretty action packed, but I actually liked it. It wasn't a bad thing. The chapters are real short chapters. So, and each chapter has the name of the characters that, their point of view for each chapter. I thought there was a good amount of tension in here, and the final plot twist was unexpected. I did not guess it. This was my first Alex Finley book. I said I wanted to read more, and he does have a couple more that I haven't read yet. So I gave this a 4.25 overall. Characters I rated a 4. Plot story 4.5. Readability 4.25, just because that multiple POV was kind of confusing, especially on audio. And an overall 4.25. So yeah, that was a good book. Where am I going to put all these? Okay. The next one I have is called The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And this is getting a movie adaptation, you guys. So yeah. I read this in paperback, and I also listened to the audiobook. So this was published by Bloodhound Books, and it's a psychological suspense / thriller. I paid $2 at Goodwill for this paperback, and then I also listened to it free through my Libby audio app. So I started it on 9/5 and I finished it on 9/8. It was a quick read, three days. This was her debut novel, and it has 2 narrators. And basically what happens is she is a successful lawyer in Washington, D.C., and one day her husband is charged with murder of his mistress. So he was having an affair. Now she's been murdered. He's been charged with it. And his wife, Sarah, chooses to defend him, to be his defense lawyer in his murder trial. So yeah, that was interesting. I will say the male main character, Adam, her husband, is a very unlikable character in this book. I did not guess the ending, and this was an easy, quick read with short chapters. This is my second Geneva Rose book. The first one I read is Home is Where the Bodies Are. I might have liked that one a little bit better, but this was, for her debut novel, it was good. And I read, and I'm going to talk about next, the sequel, which is called The Perfect Divorce. But the ratings on this overall, I gave it a 4.25 overall. Characters, 3.75. Like I said, I did not really like Adam in this book, the husband. The plot story, 4.25, and readability, 4.5. So overall, 4.25. And that is A Perfect Marriage. There were some things in here that I felt were kind of either far-fetched or plot holes, but the second book did redeem some of those, tied up some of those loose ends. So I'll talk about that next year. So if you read this and found it frustrating, maybe some of those points, read the second one and see if it answers some of those questions that you had at the end of this. Which, by the way, this ends on a major cliffhanger, so you kind of want to pick up the second one. So the second one we have here, the sequel, is called The Perfect Divorce. And another Sprayed Edges book. This is so cool. And I think this, it's not a Barnes & Noble exclusive. You can get these Sprayed Edges anywhere. So, yes, I love the bloody Sprayed Edges. And it says, "Till death do us part, yours, not mine." So, this is a sequel to The Perfect Marriage. I only read this in hardcover. This had a different publisher. Because this is 5 years later now. This is published this year, 2025, by Blackstone Publishing. It is a thriller, 280 pages. It was $20 on Amazon, $19.99. I did buy it new because I wanted the Sprayed Edges. And the first time I bought it, and it got lost in transit. It said it was sitting at my local post office for like a week or something. So I requested a refund and then ordered it again and finally got it. So there was a gap. Like, I wanted to read them back to back, but I didn't. The first book that I just talked about, Perfect Marriage, I finished it on September 8th. This one I did not pick up till 9/25. So it was almost kind of, by that time I had to kind of go back and be like, wait, I forgot about some of those things already because I had read several books in between, but started this on 9/25 and finished it on 9/30. So 5 days of just reading the hardback. So now we're 10 years later, I think. 11 years. It's been 11 years since high-powered attorney Sarah Morgan defended her husband Adam against the charge of murdering his mistress. Sarah has long since moved on, starting a family with her new husband. I don't know that I want to say his name, and changing careers. Her life is back to being exactly how she always wanted, or is it? So then she finds out that her new husband in this book, this is all in the synopsis here, he had a one-night stand, and so she like quickly files for divorce. But let's see. However, amid their ugly separation, new DNA evidence is uncovered in the case against Adam, her former husband, forcing the cops to reopen the investigation and putting her right back in the spotlight. And then the woman that her husband slept with is reported missing. And that's all right here, too. And so it says he and Sarah start to fight dirty and a high-stakes game of cat and mouse ensues. Yeah. So, like I said, this wrapped up a lot of the loose ends and events from the first book. Because the first book, after I read it, I was like, oh, this is good. Sorry, the sun's like coming in weird. But the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, it didn't really explain this or that very well, or that seemed kind of far-fetched. This rationalized a lot of that, and I liked that. It provided more reasonable explanations for events in the first book. And I did guess some, but not all of this ending. It was an easy, quick read with short chapters and told from multiple point of views, just like the first one. I meant to lock my cats out of this room, my pets, and now I wish I did because they're causing chaos over there. I said that I actually like this book slightly better than the first one because I got closure from stuff from the first book. And in the back, her acknowledgments, she hints that there might be another one. She said this is not the last we'll see of Sarah Morgan. So that was kind of cool. And I'd like to see a third book. I'm glad I read this one, and I recommend reading them both together. They're both short, fairly short, fast-paced, quick reads. Kind of treat it as one story and read it all together if you're going to go down this path. I gave it a 4.25 overall, which is the same rating I gave The Perfect Marriage. I should probably bump that up to 4.5 because it was better. And her writing style has gotten better since her first book. So this was 4.25 for characters, 4.5 for plot story, 4.5 for readability, and overall rating 4.25. So, yes, that was good. The next book, so I didn't exactly, like I said, read those in order. I read The Perfect Marriage, read a few books, went back to Perfect Divorce. But the next one we're going to talk about actually started on September 8th after I read The Perfect Marriage. And that is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So this is by Julie Quinn. This is Penelope and Colin's story. It's a 4th Bridgerton book. So there's 8 books in the main series, which I'm slowly working my way through. And then there's a few spin-off series, but these can be read as standalones because each story follows a different character's love story, basically. And they're all siblings. This is published by Avon Books. It's a historical romance published in 2002, 447 pages. I did this in paperback and audiobook. Almost a year ago, I paid $30 for a set of 8 on Facebook Marketplace of these books. And then I also read it free through Libby. And it took me 3 days, September 8th to September 11th. So, yeah, basically this is a story of Penelope and Colin. So Colin is a Bridgerton and Penelope is a character we see in the preceding books, a family friend. And basically it's their love story. I said that it was kind of comforting to revisit Bridgerton after a while just because they're just these like cozy popcorn kind of reads. They're not too deep. They're easy to listen to while you multitask, which I do like that. And in this one, we discover who Lady Whistledown is, which we didn't know in the first, 3 books. And so I'm not going to say it. I've heard it's revealed pretty early in the show. I've only watched the first season, so I don't know. I thought it was someone from watching the first season, and it's not. So we find out in here who Lady Whistledown is, which she writes anonymous, like a gossip column that everyone's really into. And I did like that Penelope, she's a very likable and relatable character, and I've liked her in the series so far, and so it was good to hear her story, but very low tension curve. The third book is still my favorite so far, but I will go ahead and read the rest. I gave this a 3.25 overall, 3.5 for character, 3.25 for plot and readability, and again, overall 3.25. So, yeah, those are just kind of fun popcorn books, nothing too intense. The next book I read is The Four Seasons by Kristen Hanna. So this I got checked out from my local library. I was really excited to see it in our little small branch we have near me, which is actually in the school. And so I did hardcover and also listened to it on audiobook. I checked it out and then it was like already available in Libby, and I didn't even plan that. So that was pretty cool. This was published by St. Martin's Press. It's a historical fiction published in 2021, 454 pages and 15 hours on audio. It was free through the library via hard copy and the Libby app. I started it on 9/12 and I finished it at 9/15. So again, 3 days. I'm sensing a trend here. So this was a great book. Kristin Hannah can do no wrong. Was this my favorite Kristin Hannah book ever? No. You can see I have a couple in the background here behind me. The Great Alone, that's like my favorite book. That's my favorite Kristin Hannah book and probably my favorite book or one of them. And then The Nightingale and then The Women. I love all her books I've read, and this did not disappoint. It wasn't my favorite. I would say it's my fourth book of hers that I've read, probably fourth place, but still, she can do no wrong. It was still a really good book. So this takes place during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl era. And I think they live in Oklahoma, somewhere where they were affected. Oh, Texas, by the Dust Bowl. And like her other books I've read, it's centered around a strong female main character, which I love, and her story. So my land tells its story if you listen, the story of our family. So it's 1921, everything's going great and stuff. And then she ends up she's kind of lives a sheltered life, meets this boy. They end up getting married young and living with his family on his farm. And they grow wheat and stuff like that. And then the Dust Bowl hits, and it's just really hard times for everyone. And people are heading to California, and they have to decide, are they going to stay and try to tough it out because their land means so much to them, or are they going to go to California? And we see a lot of the stuff in her books are based on real events. So we see when families go to California that they faced a lot of discrimination. You know, they were basically, even though they were U.S. citizens, they were immigrating to California, and people there were kind of hostile towards it. Like, you guys are taking our jobs and like putting a strain on our economy. And these people were not treated, you know, as regular citizens. And so we see that, and then we see the way that they kind of fought back for equal rights and equal pay and stuff for some of the jobs that they were exploited in, because people knew they're desperate, they'll do anything for a job, and they were exploited. So then we see them kind of fighting back against that. And throughout this whole thing, we see her story. What is this character's name? Elsa. And we see as she's a young woman over the years, and how she finds her voice and, you know, becomes a strong female in this book. And yeah, it's just really great. I said this is another excellent emotional Kristin Hannah book. You know, her books are always gonna potentially be a tearjerker. It's gripping, and it made me want to learn more about the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. That's the thing. Every book I've read of hers, well, Alaska, I knew the history, but I still wanted to learn more about the 70s pipeline, all that. But all her books that I've read actually make me want to go read about the true events that they're based on. And historical fiction can sound kind of boring, but she does it so well because her character development is amazing, and you just really become invested in these characters. I said this wasn't as great as the other three I've read, but I still really enjoyed it. She's still my favorite author, and this was a tearjerker. I didn't cry, but I could see it takes a lot to make me cry. I did almost shed a tear in Kristin Hannah's book, The Women. But other than that, it takes a lot to make me cry in a book. But this was so good. So this is her fourth novel that I've read all this year. If I ever see this used for cheap, I will pick up a copy for my own personal library, because it's Kristen Hanna. I would love to add it to my collection, but I'm happy that I got to read it for free through the library. And I want to read more of her stuff. She has a new book coming out, I think next year, 2020. No, I think it's 2027. And they haven't announced any information, like a title or anything as far as I'm aware, but I think it's coming out 2027. So I gave this overall 5 stars, even though, like I said, maybe not compared to all her other books, but it was still a really solid book. So 4.75 for characters and plot. Readability was a 5. Overall was a 5. So here we have my first 5-star book of the month. You can never go wrong with Kristen Hanna. I think if you're going to start with her, I mean, The Nightingale, it just had its 10th anniversary edition come out, and that's probably her most popular book. That's based on World War II, but I don't know. I would maybe start with either The Nightingale, The Great Alone, or The Women. But this was also, I mean, you can't go wrong starting anywhere with her. So this was a great book, and highly recommend this author and this book. Okay. The next one I read is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. So I read this in hardcover and audiobook, and this is published by William Morrow. It's a thriller published in 2020, 313 pages or 10 hours on audio. So I got this at my used bookstore for $8 and free on Libby for the audio. It took me one day, 9/16 to 9/17, to read this. So basically this is about, it says, an exclusive wedding on a remote Irish island. The bride, the plus one, the best man, the wedding planner, the bridesmaid, all have a secret. All have a motive, but only one is a murderer. So they're having this exclusive wedding, and yeah, stuff goes down, and then you start to learn more about the characters and their baggage and stuff, and you don't really know who it could be, but there's multiple flawed characters that it could be any of them. So I said this was a quick, easy read. There were 6 point of views in this book, and so 6 narrators. Having that 6 different narrators did help with clarity when you're listening to it on audio. The other thing that helped is kind of similar to that Alex Finley book. Each chapter had the character's name and who they are in the book. So Jules, the bride, and Jono, the best man, stuff like that. So that helped keep you on track. And I thought it might be confusing, but it really wasn't. This was a pretty quick, easy read. The chapters, the thing that was kind of annoying is the chapters aren't numbered. And so it did make it kind of hard to bounce back and forth between the paper copy and the audio when the chapters aren't numbered. I would have liked to see them numbered rather than just having the character name. I did partially guess the end. It did pick up about 70% in, so it was a little bit slow. I was kind of like, come on, let's get going here, especially after reading Alex Finley. This was definitely slower pace, but it did pick up, I said, towards the end, and connections among characters. Some of the connections among the characters seemed too coincidental. The way that they kind of wrapped it up and made it all work, it was like, yeah, I don't know. I can see 1 or 2 of these things happening, but the chances are like 4 or 5 of these coincidences. Yeah, I don't know. So this was my first Lucy Foley book. I will read more of hers. I have a couple. I have what do I have of hers? Well, I just picked up The Midnight Feast, and then I think I have The Paris Apartment. So we'll read more of her books. I did like the setting, the remote Irish island. That was cool. I liked the setting, and I liked the accents of the narrators. So I gave this a 3.5 overall for characters and plot. The readability was 4.25, but overall 3.5. So it was fun, a fun, fast I don't know if I'd say fast-paced, a fun thriller, but nothing like earth-shattering. And I feel like this is like her most popular book, so yeah, I don't know. Okay, the next book I read is the other Alex Finley book, and this is Every Last Fear. Okay, so I read this in paperback and audio, and this was published by St. Martin Press, and it's an action thriller published in 2021. So when did I say What Have We Done was 2023? So this was an older book. I think this is his second book that he wrote. 444 pages or 11 hours on audio. And I paid $2 for this at Goodwill and then listened to it free through Libby. So I started this on 9/17 and I finished it on 9/19. 2 days to read this. So let me tell you a little bit what it's about. So this kid, after a late night partying, NYU student Matt Pine returns to his dorm room to devastating news. Nearly his entire family, his mom, his dad, his little brother, and sister, have been found dead from an apparent gas leak while vacationing in Mexico. The local police claim it was an accident, but the FBI and State Department seem far less certain, and they won't tell him why. Tragedy makes headlines everywhere because this isn't the first time the Pine family has been thrust into the media spotlight. Matt's older brother, Danny, currently serving a life sentence for the murder of his teenage girlfriend, Charlotte, was the subject of a viral crime documentary suggesting that Danny was wrongfully convicted. Though the country has railed behind Danny, Matt holds a secret about his brother. He's never told anyone. The night Charlotte was killed, Matt saw something that makes him believe his brother is guilty of the crime. And so he's aided by an FBI agent, and he must finally unearth the truth behind the night that sent his brother to prison, putting him on a risky path that faces him to confront his every last fear. I feel like there was an Easter egg in here. I'll see if I talk about it. But anyway, I liked this. This was another action-packed thriller. And I didn't mind the action. I didn't find it to be too actiony, too much. It has short chapters. It was a quick read. And it was easy to follow till the end. At the end, there were several twists that were thrown in, which some of them that seemed kind of unnecessary. There was one where I was like, really, why did you even have to bring that up as a thing? It didn't add anything to the story or anything like that. But some of these twists made it kind of hard to follow. And I was listening to it on audio. I had to go back and reread that part at the end because it was kind of confusing. But I did guess part of it, but not all of the ending. And I found it to be very entertaining. So this is his debut novel. Under this, it says Alex Finley is a pen name. So it's his debut novel under his pen name anyway. And I do want to read his other books. He has one called The Night Shift that I think is fairly popular. I want to read that. And what is the other one he has? I don't remember, but they had the first chapter of it in the back of his other book, and I want to read that one too. It's the same cop in here that is in The Night Shift. So at the end of this book, they have the first couple chapters of The Night Shift, and FBI agent Sarah Keller is also in that book. So that could be kind of fun. That's 8 years earlier though, that story takes place. The Night Shift, 8 years earlier. So what did I rate this? Overall, I gave it a 4. This was a solid 4, and maybe I would have done a little bit higher. I don't know. Maybe more like a 4.25. But at the time, I rated it a 4 overall. Characters 4, plot story 4, readability 4.25, overall 4. Yeah, if you're looking for a fast-paced, action-packed thriller, either of his books that I have talked about in this video are a good way to go. Okay, the next book I read, I loved this book. And that is The Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. As much as I love Kristen Hanna, dare I say, this might have been my favorite book of the month. In fact, yeah, I will say this was my favorite read of September. This was so good. I loved it. Okay, so this was published by Minotaur Books and St. Martin's Press. So this, it says that the genre is thriller suspense. I would say more suspense, but literary suspense. So the author, I think this is her first novel, but she's also a poet. So the language and the prose in here, everything is it has a poetic feel. I love the writing style. So I paid $6 for this used through Walmart.com. And it was also free to listen to through audio on Libby. I read this in 2 days. I started it on 9/20 and I finished it on 9/22. So it says no electricity, no family, no connection to the outside world. So this is about a guy named Cooper and his daughter Finch, and they live in the remote mountains, in the Appalachian woods, a remote cabin in the northern Appalachian woods. And that's exactly where he wants to be, away from society, because he has a secret to hide. And so everything's just going hunky-dory in their life, business as usual. Basically, they have one neighbor guy that he's, also kind of like a hermit. But other than him, their only contact really with the outside world is his friend Jake that brings them supplies once a year on the dot, same day every year. Well, this year Jake doesn't show up. And they're like, how are we going to make it through winter? That's a problem. At the same time that's happening, and when a stranger wanders into their woods, Finch's growing obsession with her could put them all in danger. After a shocking disappearance threatens to upend the only life Finch has ever known, Cooper must decide whether to keep hiding or finally face the sins of his past. Vividly atmospheric and masterfully tense, The Silent Woods is a poignant story of survival, sacrifice, and how far a father will go when faced with losing it all. Yes, this was so good. It was tense, as a parent and stuff. I was just kind of on the edge of my seat, like, oh, just let everything be okay with him and his daughter and stuff. And okay, so what do I have in my notes here? I said great prose, vivid imagery, very tense. So some of the books that this kind of reminded me a little bit of are, if you've read Stillwater Girls, at least like the first part of Stillwater Girls, this reminded me of that, but I think this was better. Also the book The Light Between Oceans, that was a really good book. It's been years since I read that, but kind of reminded me a little bit of that. And then I've never read the book, but I've seen the movie Room, and that was very intense, with a situation with a kidnapping situation. This isn't kidnapping, but with the kid and everything, it kind of gave me that same sense of unease that I had when I watched Room. So this was so good. I said I almost cried with this. This is a story that will stick with me for a long time. It was emotional, and I actually love the ending. You guys, the whole time I'm so on edge, biting my nails. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh, don't let this be bad. Don't let this be bad. I really love the ending. She made it work in a way that I felt really good about it, and it was believable. Really enjoyed it. So the tension curve was very high for me in this. Not like thriller, bad guy trying to kill you, but just their whole precarious situation in the woods and just how fragile their situation is. So, and the kid in there, I loved her, Finch. She's 8 years old, and she kind of reminded me of my 8-year-old daughter. Just very kind and inquisitive, and yeah. So this was her debut novel, and I said I love this book. And I told my husband after I read this, I said, I think I'm gonna have a book hangover. And I kind of did. I mean, it didn't stop me from getting into another book, but it kind of did. And it's been a while. I think the last time I felt like that was after reading a different Kristen Hanna book. So I do want to read more of her books. She does have a few more, and I would say this was a favorite book for me of 2025. And not only that, but it was kind of fitting that it was like one of my top favorite books because it was also my 60th book. So this book, I hit goal when I finished this book for the year. So that was a great way to hit my 60 books is with this book. I loved it so much. So ratings, I gave it 5+ across, well, overall 5+, readability 5, plot story 5, and characters 5+. I highly recommend this book. If you get one thing from this video, it is to go read The Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. So good. Okay. We are getting down there. We have 2 more books. The next one I have is called, it's another thriller, and it's called Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister. So I did read one of her books last month that I talked about in August, her most famous book, Wrong Place, Wrong Time. She has this book, and then she has another book called, what is it? Famous Last Words. And then I think she has another one that just came out. Something Caller or something. There's like a phone on the cover. Anyway, we're here to talk about this book, Just Another Missing Person. I read this in paperback and audio. It was published by William Morrow. It's a thriller, and it was published in 2023, 377 pages or 10 hours on audio. Paid $2 for this at Goodwill, and again, listen to it free on Libby. So I started this on 9/22, and I finished it on 9/25, so 3 days again. Let's see here. It says, a heart-stopping thriller in which the search for a missing woman unravels dark secrets that lead a detective to an impossible moral choice. So this lady, she is a detective, takes her job very seriously. You know, it's like a big part of her life. And so is her daughter and her son, her husband. Her family's very important to her. So, there is, let's see, 22-year-old Olivia has been missing for 1 day and counting. She was last seen on CCTV entering a dead-end alley and not coming back out again. So the detective thinks she knows what to expect. She's been through this before, but she has no idea just how close to home this case is going to get because the criminal at the heart of the disappearance has something she never expected. His weapon isn't a gun or a knife, it's a secret. Her worst one, and her family's safety depends on just one thing. Julia must not find out what happened to Olivia, the missing person, and must frame somebody else for her disappearance. If you find her, you'll lose everything. What would you do? So, that's a pretty interesting premise to me. I said I really enjoyed this. There were multiple point of views and narrators. I think there were 4. This is set in Great Britain because our author is British. And there was a big plot twist about 60% into the book. And I wasn't expecting it. And so it was kind of confusing. And I, again, had to go back and reread it. But I loved it. I loved that changed the trajectory of the whole story. And I like the parent-child relationships being a big part of the story and the characters, kind of like Wrong Place, Wrong Time. So I guess when she wrote this, Gillian was pregnant with her first child. And so she said in her acknowledgments, you know, in her book, she tried to write about how she thought a parent-child relationship would look like as an adult. But I think she did a really good job. There's that connection, the parent-child connection that I really liked in this book, again, in her other Wrong Place, Wrong Time. So, I did not see the ending coming in this, and, it was good. The tension curve, again, the biggest plot twist was about 60% into the book, and it did continue to go up from there. But this is the second book I've read of hers, and I do want to read more books by her, and I would recommend this. So I gave it a 4.5 overall. Characters 4.5, plot story 4.75, readability 4.25, and so there we ended up with a 4.5. So that was a good book. I think she's a really great author. The last book that I read in September, finished in September, is another Bridgerton book, To Sir Philip with Love. And this is Eloise's story. It's a 5th Bridgerton book. Written by Julia Quinn, published by Avon Books in 2003. Historical romance, 397 pages and 11 hours on audio. Again, like I said, I paid $30 for all 8 of them, and I listened to this free through the Libby app. Started it on 9:25 and I finished it on 9:30. So it did take me a little bit longer to get through this. So I like Eloise throughout the book. She's actually best friends with Penelope, who we meet in book 4. They're best friends, and so they're both strong-willed Victorian women. And she's not going to take nothing from no one. So I like that about her. Throughout the series. This was, again, easy to listen to while I was multitasking. It was a quick popcorn read. The kids in this book did grow on me. I'm like, some of the stuff that they did were kind of ornery and remind me a little bit of my own kids at times, but they definitely grew on me. And that reminded me of my kids too. So, I have 3 books left in this main series, and I will get through them all. I don't know, will I this year? It just depends. I feel like if I have a lot going on in my life, I like to do these as just like, they're quick. Like I said, multitask pretty easy. I think the rest of them are, I don't think they have holds for the last 3 on my Libby. These ones all had holds, so that's why I haven't been reading them back to back, but I might just try to finish up the series this year. So that is all 11 books that I got through in September 2025. It was a great reading month. I don't know. I didn't take any time off work where I was traveling or anything, but just doing the tandem reading really helps me get through books where I can listen to them and read them at the same time. Or, I'll like listen to it during the day while I'm doing chores and stuff, and then I'll read maybe at night when I'm settling in. And that's helped a lot. So I'm so happy that I got through my reading goal, had my best reading month ever, and I had a couple 5-star reads in here. My favorite was The Silent Woods. Sorry. This was my favorite. But the Kristen Hanna, The Four Winds was another close runner-up. And then my least favorite out of all these, I didn't have anything that was really bad, but I guess, maybe The Guest List was just because it was kind of a slow start in some of the coincidences in it, but still not a bad read. I don't regret spending time reading it. So those are all the books I got through. Stay tuned. I am going to be doing a video for all the books that I acquired in the month of September. Not a whole lot, but October is going to be a big one. Because it's my birthday month, and I'll talk about that in that video, but I'm going to have a lot of books. Also, I'm currently reading an amazing series that I'm like obsessed with, and I will talk about it in my October reads, but it's the Black Winter series by Darcy Coates. This is the first book, Voices in the Snow. I'm on the 3rd one now, and I am obsessed. I can't wait to share it with you guys. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel, or even just giving me a thumbs up. And comment down below. Let me know what you're reading. If you've read any of these books, if you've read these Silent Woods, what your thoughts are on it. Love to continue the conversation. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.